I see you found our little hiding spot in the universe. Don't get too comfortable. This is a place where you will find those with an experience that's out of this world, or possibly deep within your life. I welcome you to the Oracles with James Tyson. Lean forward and listen. We will pull you into a supernatural journey with guests from around the world, each one experiencing some of the most extraordinary phenomena this wee planet has to offer. I wish to invite you to support the program through the Oracles with JamesTyson.com Patreon link. For as little as $3 per month, you qualify for a free monthly psychic reading, a past life regression, and exclusive access to our filmed interviews. Don't lower your guard. That's just the beginning as we give back. When I have reached 2,222 members, we will be giving away monthly trips to supernatural hotspots and conferences across North America. Don't run. I can see you. With a limit of 4,500 Patreon supporters, you will want to get your passports ready, as every third month we will include paranormal conferences and tours in Europe and Australia. I know you can hear me. Visit theoracleswithjamestyson.com and click on the Patreon link. Where are you listening? That's the Patreon button at theoracleswithjamestyson.com. Now, here are the Oracles with James Tyson.
Thank you, Liam, you crazy little alien, and welcome, listener, to this episode of The Oracles with James Tyson. I am James Tyson, and I'm giggling because I have Dr. Barry E. Taff on this episode, and Barry and I go back a couple of years. I just haven't talked to him for a couple of years, so we're going to catch up on a few of the crazy things he's up to, and I'm going to introduce the new listener to Dr. Barry Taff. Well, who is Barry Taff? Well, Barry holds a doctorate in psychophysiology with a minor in biomedical engineering. He's a world-renowned parapsychologist who worked out of the UCLA's former Parapsychology Laboratory from 1969 through 1978 as a research associate. During his 4-decade career, Dr. Barry has investigated more than 4,500 cases of ghosts, hauntings, poltergeists, and conducted extensive studies in telepathy, precognition, and eventually developing the initial protocols and methodologies for what was later termed remote viewing. So that's some of the stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about remote viewing. We're going to talk about his belief system based on his studies and his experiences with dealing with people. And one of the things we really want to touch on is what he refers to as a poltergeist agent. What is a poltergeist agent? Well, we're going to find out. I'm going to ask him eventually. I know once you get Barry talking, holy cow, he's a walking encyclopedia of parapsychology. He has written a book a few years back. It's called Aliens Above, Ghosts Below, and he's presently writing his new book, whose title he won't tell me because I'm guessing it's going to probably give away a lot of the stuff that he is going to be writing about, so he wants to kind of surprise us on that. He lives down in Southern California now. He is still experiencing things. He has appeared on numerous TV and radio programs from Coast to Coast AM with George Knapp and CBS News. He's been news channels from Montel Williams to Joan Rivers Show, Strange Universe, Unsolved Mysteries, Unknown Encounter in California's Most Haunted. He's hung out with a lot of the paranormal TV people who go out and allegedly do paranormal investigations. He and I have a common buddy out in Southern California, Mr. David Oman, and Barry will not go back to that house because that entire neighborhood is kind of glows in the dark energetically. It's off the grid when it comes to energy. He just can't physically go there. If he goes there, he'll get sick. I think he's been there 15 or 16 times, and he gets sick every time he goes there. He is consulted for government business and law enforcement, including the CIA, Office of Naval Intelligence, National Security Agency, the NSA, Defense Language Institute, Defense Intelligence Agency, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, and the FBI, Interpol, LAPD, California Highway Patrol, Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department, and the Westminster Police Department. Yeah, he's talked to a lot of people about the stuff that either they want to know. Mostly, I'm guessing, with the CIA and Office of Naval Intelligence, it's going to go back to his parapsychology studies in remote viewing. So we're going to touch base on his remote viewing. He's also been technical advisor on several films, for Logan's Run, Demon Seed, Altered States, Poltergeist, and The Entity. And he has also written numerous articles for magazines and journals and has been featured in many books on paranormal subjects ranging from precognition to UFOs. But I'm going to save the UFO stuff for later. We're going to bring Barry back kicking and screaming, and probably going to talk to him about that another day. Now, if you want to follow us, please, let's jump in here on his website, Barry Taff, TAFF.net. Again, that's Barry Taff, that's TAFF.net. And open his website up. You'll see a picture of his book cover in the top left corner. You click on that and it'll take you to a number of the stories, little snippets of his book, Aliens Above, Ghosts Below, that he wrote around, I'm guessing, I think it was 2011 or something like that. But a wonderful little book. Please check that out. If you want to get a hold of Barry, you got some questions for him, Barry E. Taff, all one word, Barry E. Taff at ca.rr.com. Again, that's Barry E. Taff at ca.rr.com. Barry's going to be on hopefully a little bit regularly, so I'm sure if you have questions, you can call me and or get a hold of me on my website. To just go to theoraclesofjamestyson.com, go to contact, send me a email, and with a list of questions or a couple of questions, and I can pass them on to Barry for you. And while you're there, why don't you click on the Patreon link, and if you're feeling up to it, if you can sponsor me for $3 a month, that would be great. And I will be drawing names when I hit that 25 people mark. We're going to be giving away one past life regression, one psychic reading, and one numerology chart every month. And at that magic number of 2,222, I will be drawing a name once a month for a trip for two, airfare, hotel, accommodation, and car rental to a venue of your choice. Kind of that bucket list. If you want to go see something to do with ghosts, if you want to come out and hang out with a bunch of Bigfoot investigators, or want to go out to even like Sedona, Arizona with Melinda Leslie and watch the UFOs come and go from a portal up there. Very, very interesting stuff. And when we max out at around what I think Liam says 4,500, but he may drop that down to 3,500 people max. And we'll be drawing for trips more of the international variety. So instead of flying from Australia to New Zealand to see something, or bouncing around Australia, or bouncing around the United Kingdom into France or Portugal or Spain, relatively close, we will bounce you across the continents. If you want to go see some good ghosts, we'll go over to Scotland. And if you're in Scotland, we'll bring you over here to North America or down to Australia, and you can bounce around and see some ghosts down there. And same with UFOs. If you want a UFO conference, Bigfoot conferences, talk to some people that really know what they're talking about, yeah, then we'll come out. But I get a hold of Barry here. I'm giddy because I haven't talked to Barry for a couple of years, and it's going to be fun. I will be bugging him in end of June while I'm down at Alien Con. I'm going to bounce out, take him for lunch, and take a walk in the desert, see if we get abducted or something. Barry's experiences are numerous, and hopefully this book he's writing is going to be about 1,000 pages, and he's an amazing, amazing human being. Barry Taff, how have you been?
Well, good, bad, and in between. It's
good, bad, and in between. Yes, it's been a couple of years since we've chatted, and a lot of, we'll call it, what should we call it? A lot of water under the bridge, a lot of plasma dripping and under the bridge there as it moves on. Now, Barry, I've always been fascinated by the beginning of your career. You're, people know you're a doctor, Dr. Barry E. Taff. And if you want to listen or follow along here, go to his website, Barry Taff, Taff, all one word, barrytaff.net, and check out his biography on there, and you'll be absolutely fascinated with what he's been up to. But to take you back pre-Parapsychology Laboratory at UCLA, where you kind of started that in 1969, what had you focused and what directed you to that type of work?
Well, in most people's lives, as they grow up and mature, there's certain elements that lead you in certain directions based on your interests and motivations, and what stimulates you, what motivates you to do what's a thing right for you. And growing up, I was having a lot of paranormal experiences, telepathic, clairvoyant, precognitive. Okay, why me? Why not my parents? They didn't. Friends of mine, they didn't. Why me? And so in a way, I was trying to investigate myself, because I got in a lot of trouble with this in grammar school. I remember I was 10 years old, and it was a bright spring day, and then we were playing in the recess of the courtyard, and this little blonde girl named Christine, a very cute girl, started walking towards me, and suddenly, the only way to describe it was 3D color X-ray vision. And suddenly I saw that on her right, there was a bag under her right side, a tube going into her body. And I went up to her. I said, Christy, what's that bag and tube? I ran and got her teacher, and they took to the principal's office. He goes, we can kick you out of school for this. I go, for what? You snuck to the girl's bathroom. You looked under her dress. I go, no, I didn't. Then how did you see it? Well, I didn't know. She had a colostomy. I didn't know what a colostomy was. I'm 10 years old. He said, how could you see it? I told him, and I said, this is what I can do. And he goes, okay. Called my mom, and my mom says, yeah, Barry can do this. And the principal went, what? Barry can do this? What are you talking about? So he gets off the phone. My mother wouldn't go beyond that because she was terrified of it. So I'm sitting in front of this guy, and I looked at him, and I said, you've got that scar, that's a keloid. I didn't use that word because I didn't know it. It's a scar from an appendectomy long ago, and it's always inflamed because he's overweight, whatever. And I told him about it. He turned purple and blue and green and red. He said, I'll give you this warning once, and that's it. If we hear of this again, we're going to throw you out of school, and we'll have you arrested. Okay, well, obviously, it did happen again, but I never spoke of it.
Yeah.
And so I remember in junior high, there was a girl named Helene. I remember what she looked like. I don't remember her last name. But, and every time she got near me, even if I didn't know she was near me, every time I'd feel dizzy and I'd black out, I'd pass out. And I thought, what's going on? I mean, sometimes, in a crowd, and she'd come up behind me and I didn't know it, and I hit the floor. And she was epileptic. And I've learned since then that when around people who are epileptic, I get dizzy and nauseous, and often I freak out. I pass out. So that's my parents knew I could do this. This is like 45 years ago, 50 years ago. My mom said, okay, if you can do this, tell me what's wrong with Dad, her wife, my father. I said, is it visibly discernible? And she said, no. I said, well, he has that high anal hernia. And my mother went, what? Well, how did you know? You guessed. I only said one thing. I didn't say two things, three things, five things. I said one thing. So they just said, we don't want to hear about this. Well, anyway. So that sort of got me into this. I could close my eyes and see friends, what they were doing, what they were saying. I thought it was normal. I had out-of-body experience a lot when I was younger. And what I've discovered is that everyone's got a tolerance for this threshold. And if that tolerance is exceeded, even to a minute amount, the person either runs, it's fight or flight. They either terrified of you, or they want to fight you about it. They get really upset. In 1973, I met a girl in the lab named Carol. She looks like a young, short, what's her name? Shirley MacLaine, but with dark hair. Very exotic looking. So, we start dating, no big deal, and we're talking once in her place. And I said to her, "Oh, you've got a little tumor here in her left breast." She went, "What?" "It's right here." "Well, what do you mean a tumor?" I said, "Well, I can see it." "How can you see it?" I said, "Don't worry, it's not malignant. There's no calcium around it." She goes, "What are you talking about?" So she didn't want to talk about it. Okay. So weeks later, she finished her degree. She got a job with a big company, and they had to give her a full medical workup for insurance purposes. And guess what they found in her left breast, right where I told her? A lump. They did a biopsy, and it was not malignant. It was benign, but she still had to take it out. That didn't do well with her. She really, really freaked out. But that wasn't the end of it. The end of it was she accompanied me to opening night of The Exorcist, 1973. Now, I already met Blatty and Friedkin. They already came to the lab. I discussed a little bit in the book. So anyway, during the first act of the movie, where Linda Blair is being bounced around like a rag doll in her bed, and I turned to Carol at a dead quiet theater, and I said to her, "I've seen a bed do that in a house in Hollywood." And she looked at, "Huh?" And in a dead quiet theater in the frontal section, this is at the National Theater in Westwood, which doesn't exist anymore. Anyway, I heard a voice yell out, "Hey, Barry, is that you?" And my girlfriend was, she "I can't take this. People are talking to you about this everywhere we go. I can't take it." I go, "Okay." So, that ended that. But the question is, why am I able to look into people as if they're made of glass? When Man of Steel came out in 2013, in the first act, that's the second act or whatever, where you see a young Clark Kent at school and suddenly he's looking through people. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I went through. And I went, "Oh, it's interesting, but why me?" I had one of my physicians in Beverly Hills when I lived in LA. I had to go have a checkup. This was like 10 years ago. So I go to see the guy, nice doctor. He's taking my heartbeat, he's taking my blood pressure, the whole bit. And I said to him, "Oh, by the way, do you drive a black Lexus SC430? He went, "What? Do you drive a black Lexus?" "Yeah, how did you know?" "I don't know, you got near me, and that's what I felt." And I said, "Oh, you're having lumbar problems, lower back, and some upper respiratory stuff, and you're thinking of resigning soon, retire. How did you know?" I said, "Well, you're in front of me." "I don't know." And he ran out of the office like I shot him in the butt with a BB gun. And so it's, like I said, I remember when The Dark Knight came out. I went to see it with an old friend of mine from UCLA, a girl I knew through friends of friends. We met at the Directors Guild. We're sitting down. The movie starts. It's interesting, and suddenly my bladder feels like it's on fire and it's going to explode. Horrible cramping, burning. And what's going on? And then the girl I was with, named Lauren, she said, "Oh, I've got to go. My daughter needs me." "Is it an emergency?" No, okay. So she left. I stayed. We drove separately there, which was a good decision. And the minute she left, I felt fine. I found out the next day that Lauren had a bad bladder infection.
So you were
you
were picking up her bladder infection.
Yeah. So, why me? I mean, I've done a lot. There are other people who can do it. The only other person I've met who can do what I can do with the precision that I can do with is a man by the name of Jack Rourke. And we've become good friends. He worked out with in L.A. We worked together in a number of cases. And I think I wrote the foreword for his first book. And the question is, why, Jack? Why me? Why can some of us do this while others cannot? So, in a way, I got into this field to investigate myself. But it gave me a unique perspective because it wasn't just a scientist wanting to explore the unknown. It was someone who's been underwater with this stuff. They've been drowning in it since they were old enough to breathe.
Yeah.
So that's...
that's how you basically took the steps. So you have your doctorate in psychophysiology,
right,
and with a minor in biomedical engineering. So, yeah, you've kind of you've brought in as much information as you possibly can on on the human condition and and what is going on with me.
Yeah, I learned a lot about things, about the way we work, the way our bodies, our nervous system, our brains, different elements of the human condition function. But that's only just a bit of minutia, because again, we know a lot now we didn't know then. But the irony of it, and this is where it gets really weird. It gets really weird because the forces of nature we know of. There's electromagnetism, there's gravity, there's strong weak field forces. That's it as far as we know. And based on what we know about the phenomena, none of them could be responsible for it. However, the energies we do know of can affect us in ways that might trigger the events or act as stimulants for it. In poltergeist cases, we know that there's a strong geomagnetic correlation. But the energy is not magnetic because it affects things that are not ferromagnetic. I don't know. So it isn't electromagnetic, it isn't gravitational, it isn't nuclear, strong or weak. So what are you left with? Nothing. That's the problem. And the more we learn, the farther away from reality it takes us. This is why mainstream science tends to avoid parapsychology, because there is no theory that comprehensively explains anything. I mean, decades ago, Russians and some Americans looked at ESP as like biological radio transmission. We were emitting energy and it traveled on the Earth and whatever. There's no evidence that we're doing it that way. And I've got this strange feeling, and it's getting stronger as I get older, that in the end, when we finally do really understand this, we're not going to like what it tells us about reality.
Oh,
What if we learn that we know that the past is immutable. We can't change the past. But what if we learn the future is no different than the past, in that it too is immutable? Well, then where is free will? That means we're living in a deterministic reality? The work we did at UCLA, I was involved with 3 different areas. One was Dr. Moss and Dr. Herbert Eveloff, and there was some assistant of hers. Did a study on me. It was published in the mid-'70s in a medical journal. Okay, that's the part of it. Then the other part was I was doing research in the lab in terms of seeing if you could train people to enhance whatever inherent abilities they have in terms of ESP, psi, remote viewing, whatever you want to call it. So if you put a person in a positively reinforced learning paradigm and you give them feedback real quickly to what they perceive when it's correct, theoretically they should improve at their skills. Just like if you're learning to road race a car, you learn to experience in classwork, and you get to know where to brake and how to shift and where to turn at the apex of the curve and how to whatever. You also learn about engineering. And so the whole point of this is it became so easy to do some of this. It was kind of ridiculous to the point where it was boring. But early early on we had visitors that Dr. Moss brought. We did know who they were. They all looked like normal people, all older than me. And turned out they were from CIA, Defense Intelligence, Office of Naval Intelligence, Office of Naval Research, DARPA, and we did what we did, and it kind of freaked them out to the point where one of the sessions we did, we were able to access detailed information on the Trident sub that was the Ohio-class sub they were developing. This is before they were even put to sea. And they demanded that we surrender to them the audio tapes we made. Okay, we don't care. Sure. They actually wanted us to work with them to do more training and development, but UCLA would not put their name on the grant application. They did want to commit political suicide. Even back then, it was politically incorrect. But one of the on my website, there's a legal article called "Learned Psy: Training to Be Psychic," and it goes into great depth. This will also be in my new book about what we did and what we learned and the implications of what it tells us. And the bottom line with all this was the phenomena is all the same. You're remotely accessing information that is not before you. So you can access it through space, miles away, thousands of miles away, who knows, maybe even further. And then through time, which is precognition or retrocognition. But we're accessing it through a mechanism that isn't understood. And depending on where it appears to come from, will determine what we call it. But it's all accessing information. That's what it all comes down to. Some of us are better at this than others. In our side training groups at UCLA, some people, no matter what they did, they never got better. Other people were very responsive and were pliable to the learning techniques we were doing. There was one instance where there was a lot of entertainment people that came through, actors and directors, and I didn't understand how Dr. Moss knew these people. And, well, of course, I didn't know this till later. She began her life not in academia. She began her life as an actress and a writer. And she co-wrote a film called Colossus of New York, late 50s. It was actually a pretty good movie. But it had strong suggestions regarding the paranormal. Fascinating film, actually. Anyway, but she began, and then she got married, and she had 2 kids, and her husband got sick and died, and she got really upset, as most people would, and she went back to school, got a PhD in clinical psych, ended up at UCLA, and this is all how it happened. But so all these directors were coming, and some actors are popping in. Oh, this is great. But occasionally they bring information in that we didn't even know was occurring. There was one instance where this actor came. I can't mention his name, even though he's passed away. We all knew him. Everyone knew who he was, looking at his face. And we're going into the session and the whole bit, and suddenly myself and one other person start rattling off the fact that he gave us the name of the person to access remotely. And it was clearly a female's name. But I said, wait a minute, it's a man or a woman? Which one is it? What? I don't understand why it's when it turns out it was a transsexual.
Oh.
This is a long time ago. And he got real upset, got up, and quickly left the research we were doing. There were other instances where the phenomena extended beyond the mental phenomena, went in the physical domain. There was this girl who came to our group named Paula, poltergeist agent. Looked like Suzanne Summers with smaller lips. And so she's there in pitch black environment. You can't see her hand in front of the face. And suddenly this huge, large ball of bright red light comes flying out of her body. It was shooting across the room, lit up the entire room. And turn the light on, because it was gone. And there was Paula curled up in a fetal position in her chair. I don't know. What does that mean? And she never came back, and I guess I don't blame her. And then we got so bored.
She didn't die. When you say she didn't
come
back.
She
okay, good.
She left shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
There was another instance. We get so bored with the real-time telepathic clairvoyant stuff. It's like, okay, let's look for something different. So I think it was 1977 or 78. We thought, let's do a remote viewing, a precognitive session. The job was that we have to describe in detail what the next week's first random target would be. Describe in depth. Well, we haven't gotten there yet. How will we know? So we described a tall woman, beautiful blue-eyed blonde. We described the clothing she was wearing. We described what chair she was sitting in the room we were using. And we saw a 3-story home in the Hollywood Hills, baby grand piano. We're going on and on. And then we started, some of us began talking about a tall man, about 6'3", 6'4", dressed in black. Black hat, black gloves, black shirt, black pants, black boots, an imposing sword, a mask, and a black cape. We thought, have we lost our minds? And, well, okay. So the next week, only people, no one could be brought from anyone who had been at the group the last week or knew them. That would be from third parties only. They came in, everyone was given a sealed envelope with a number in it. We then rolled dice, told people to open, they sat down, open your packets. And this girl said, oh, that's my number. Now, we forgot what we said a week earlier. It was a week ago. Who would remember that? So we told her, here's a recorder. If what you're hearing is accurate to you, if it's a correct information, stop it, give us feedback. Okay, fine. So here's the description of her. Perfect. Face, hair, eyes, even her clothes. There were 16 or 17 chairs that she could have sat in on her own. No one told her where to sit, except she couldn't sit in my chair because I controlled the recording. She sat in whatever chair she picked. Every chair had a number beneath it. A week earlier, we rattled off the number of the chair, and that's what she sat in of her own accord. But she was randomly chosen. So we get to describe the house. Yep. The big grand piano. Yep. The man all in black with the cape with the sword. And she looked at me, how do you know who I am? And I went, what? How do you know who I am? What do you mean? I'm Tony Williams. And my father is Guy Williams. I went, oh my God.
Zorro.
My father played Zorro for Disney.
Yeah.
And she said, wait a minute. She said, this is weird. I didn't know I was coming here a few hours ago, and I was randomly chosen right. How could you? Exactly.
Yeah.
What does it mean? It means that perhaps some elements of the future are as fixed and rigid as the past, and maybe others aren't. We don't know. In my new book, I talk about this, how many degrees of freedom do we have? How many coincidences make a fact? 10? 100? 1,000? A billion? So we were really impressed by this event, this session, as I was. And sometime later, weeks or months later, we tried it again. And all we could sense was fire, fire, fire. Well, we must have been losing our mind. And the next day I'm up in the lab. It was late morning or early afternoon. And we hear fire engines coming in onto the campus. They pull up in front of the Neuropsychiatric Institute where the lab was. And turns out the conference room we were using had caught fire. One of the sockets behind the curtain sparked, and it caught the room on fire. But we didn't start the fire, but it was imminent. It was the next thing to happen in that space once we left. A lot of people or regulars, this started to really unnerve them and make them feel very uncomfortable with what we were doing. I said, why? Well, it means we have no control. I go, so what? As long as you think you do, who cares? You know?
Exactly.
It's, and, yeah, so this is the life I've led. I mean, most people, my new book talks about this, most people, you grow up, you go to school, you get an education, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, you get old, you die. You have some R&R hobbies maybe, or things you like to do with yourself or friends or your wife or whatever. That's the normalcy for life on Earth as we think we know it. What if your life isn't like that? What if you haven't been able to get a real-time job because you were overexposed to the media early on, which is what happened to me. When I finished my education in 1975, I sent out by snail mail, there was no social media, no internet, to hundreds of locations, a persistent professorship based on my education. Nope, wouldn't touch me. And a couple of places responded, and they said, to me, you have a lot of nerve expecting us to hire someone like you. And I went, what? Well, you'd create a hostile work environment. And I went, what are you talking about? Lloyd Auerbach explained this to me some time ago. He said, people are curious, people are frightened, people feel uncomfortable around people like you, and as well as him. And they would get distracted from their work, create a problem, and they want to know things and ask you questions, and then it creates chaos. And to show how blatant this is, even today, I and one of my colleagues, who's a medical doctor, we co-own a number of patented medical devices. And, so we have a business plan. We sent it out. This was about, 7 years ago or 8 years ago. And it went to a really big, worldwide, a multinational development group. They develop all sorts of technology, medical, aerospace, automotive. So we got it to one of the assistant people. He read it. He was very impressed. And so months went by, no reply. More months went by, no reply. More months went by, no reply. So I finally made some queries, and I got hold of the person who was supposed to get back to us, and he starts telling me that the business plan was garbage, or no evidence we've any. The patents are worthless. They don't make sense. I couldn't interpret them. And I looked and I said, look, lady said, there's no evidence of any clinical work here at all. What? I said, sir, what are you talking about? And I said, okay, all right, stop the lie. Just tell me the truth. You want the truth? Okay. I never read it. I looked you up, found out who you were, the paranormal crap, the ghosts, the ESP, the aliens. You're crazy. Click.
Great.
So this is what happens in the real world. Now, if I'd already made a lot of money doing anything normal, then, okay, you're an eccentric. But if you haven't done that, then you're crazy. So this is a problem.
Yeah, you get caught in that loop. You had your Parapsychology Laboratory ran at UCLA from 1969 through 1978, and you were a research associate there. You'd think that bit of background, that little bit of pedigree, would cancel out the parapsychology. It's what you were. When they blame, aliens, ghosts, or whatever, that you were a lunatic. Well, no, I'm only have that in my background because that's what I did
what killed me was I got a lot of media attention early on. Excuse me. I was in the LA Times several times. In fact, I hit the front page of the View section in early June of 1976 about the Hollymont case. It was a good article. It could have been a lot better. Could have been a hell of a lot worse. But they made it look kind of silly. And that didn't help. I was in the UCLA Daily Bruin 3 times. That didn't help. I was on the cover of the UCLA Monthly all about the lab. That didn't help. Taught an extension. That didn't help. We have extension for 3 years, 3 or 4 years in a row. 3 quarters out of 4. But that hurt me because, again, look at what you're doing. You're investigating something that most people consider quackery. And this is the problem. So to catch-22, you're damned if you do, you're damned if I don't. If I had not gotten any media attention at all, also I was on LA twice, I was in 2 in the Town, I got nominated for an Emmy for a show they wanted to do about ghost hunters. This is like 75 or 6. And they wanted to do just talking heads. I go, no. We've got to show people something different. So we went to a holography laboratory I was linked to at the time, and we showed holograms, and it was really interesting because it was never really brought to commercial television before like this. We got nominated for an Emmy. We lost because there were things more important than what we're doing. But that attention didn't help me. I was on Two in the Town twice. That was another network show. That didn't help me. All of this, basically, you think will be wonderful. In the end, comes back to haunt you big time. And I used to race cars professionally. And I started talking about the paranormal stuff, the drivers, and they didn't even want me on the track. They were terrified of me, that I might do something crazy, I'm not reliable, I'm not to be trusted. So it shows you, and nowadays, given all the quacky or the paranormal unreality shows that have been on, it's made matters worse because, people don't know what to believe.
Yeah.
Wait, so if it's this real, then why is it called phenomenon? Well, of course, if it was this real, no one would think about it. Oh, we know what that is. That's this, that's that. But in the end, what it tells us is information is stored in our world, in the environment, in a way we don't yet understand. And the right person can act as the laser in the DVD player and can animate the information and play it back, but only under certain conditions. And this is what my book was talking about, that some people act as what they call biological operational amplifiers, waveguides, and focal planes. Most people don't. What's interesting, the Cielo Drive case, located on top of a really grandiose geomagnetic anomaly, sometimes 1,000 times stronger than normal geomagnetic field. Why? No one knows. When they were building homes on the hill there on the top, the instruments would go crazy. They had to drill blind. They found empty magma chambers. Mm-hmm. And I went there, unfortunately, 16 times or more over the course of a year, 2005 to 6, and I ended up going to the hospital afterward almost every time because I got so sick. Other people went there, they feel nothing.
Yeah. And at Cielo Drive, for my listener, that is where David Omen's house, if you ever heard of the Omen house, about 300 some feet from where the Manson family killed Sharon Tate and right. Bianca and all that. It's right. You can look that up. And if you were also wanting to know a little bit about what Barry was talking about, the Hollymont haunting, it's in his first book, Aliens Above, Ghosts Below, and it was just one of those houses with stuff flying down the hallways, mm-hmm. and I think you had a film crew there too.
We had several over time. Yeah,
the stuff was just.
Connie Fox was there from KTTV, and kind of interesting. Her name was Fox, and things started being thrown at her, and she freaked out, ran out of the house, and as she ran down the Z-shaped stairwell in front of the house, or stairway, a huge book came flying over the house, flopping its pages, and dropped at her feet. But it followed her down the Z-shaped stairwell. Things would appear and disappear in the house. Got to live there for like 10 days when it was an escrow, and it was just one thing after another. I remember I made a glass of iced tea. I went to the fridge to get some lemon to put into it, and I turned back, and the glass is gone. I had found it through 2 sets of doors that I had locked earlier. So, why was it there? I don't know. Yeah. The owner of the house just to the east of the Hollymont case. So the Hollymont case was at 6221 Hollymont Drive. It's 2 words. It's Argyle and Franklin. If you take Argyle north from Franklin, dead ends, and then it turns into Hollymont, and it wraps around the hill. And that also has a strong geomagnetic field. There also happens to be a shallow river under that hill. You can hear it in the basement. The neighbor who lived to the east was renovating his house 43 years ago, and he was leaning against a built-in bookshelf, and it cantilevered in, and there's stairs leading down, and there's a hallway connecting some of the homes that used to be on the hill. And he was in there, and they found a headstone named Regina from 1922 or 3, I believe. That's before the houses were built. who buried someone there in that era, which I assume was illegal even back then. We'll never know. Now, who's Regina? We don't know. The last time I was there was 2008. Really nice man lived there. He allowed us to come in and check the place out. Readings were normal. They would go up and down, magnetic readings. So I had a big Pelican case. I had my instruments in. I put it down on the couch. This is a big case. They're very sturdy, pretty much impervious to harm. So we're packing up to leave. We're there for several hours. Nothing really dramatic happens, at least yet. And I pick up the case. Wait a minute. What's carved into the bottom of the case? A giant lazy R. What? But you'd need a hammer and chisel to do that. We would have heard that. A lazy R. Well, Regina is a body buried beneath the house. So...
And didn't you also smell a sweet perfume in the house?
Oh, there was whole sweet perfumes, books flying at people. We were standing in the foyer once, or this was 1976, and the light goes out, the chandelier, and suddenly, wrapped intricately around that chandelier was a black funeral cloak. It was there instantly, and then we had to get up in a tall ladder and get it down.
Wow.
This is all on my website, and most of it's in my book, and the new book will have even more stuff. Now, I did hear a really unnerving story a couple of years ago in L.A. by this woman who was a producer at the film school. She did an interview with she interviewed me about my work. So she said she was up at the house with a boyfriend who was a film guy. They were trying to make something happen. They're sitting around. And all of a sudden, the man, these tongues of flame belch out from his jacket, and he's burning up. So they got it off. But what made the jacket catch fire? He wouldn't allow us to interview him because he probably was frightened of being
scared and stuff.
Yeah, so that's an active spot. So 2 earthquake faults meet almost directly under that house, and there's a shallow river. Well, there's energy.
Yeah.
You know,
so they draw on that energy to actually be able to move things and...
Well, okay. The way I would describe all this is that, okay, when you got a DVD in your hand, you want to watch it, what do you need? Well, you need a television. You need a DVD player. You got to have a remote usually for one or both. And you got to put it in. They all have to be plugged in the wall. If any part of that ensemble is missing, nothing shows up on television. It's blank. There's no energy. I think that we, certain people, act as the needle in a record player or the laser in a DVD. We trigger a reenactment of information, positive construction of the reinforcement triggers this. And I used to have a lot more faith in the thing of dead people walking around. The evidence supports a theory that is far more complicated than that, in the sense that without us, nothing happens. Meaning, the old saying, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, yes and no. If there is no one to hear it, whether human or animal, there's no recording machine device, then there is no sound because there's no one there to document it. This phenomena is we're part of this element, that we are able to animate this. And some people could really animate it, others cannot. And the environment. So you need location, geomagnetically or electromagnetically unique. You need a person coming in who is either seizure prone or epileptic, hypersensitivity to EMFs, and you need a trauma to trigger it, really strong stress. Now, what's odd, the majority of poltergeist agents I've been able to interview, many over time, most, if not all of them, have either had full temporal lobe epilepsy or they have focal seizures. And when they take their medication to quell the seizures, the phenomenon stops. So while we see a high degree of correlation between the poltergeist agents and the epilepsy or focal seizures. It's not, it's unilateral. Most people who are epileptic or seizure prone are not poltergeist agents. The majority of poltergeist agents happen to be seizure prone or epileptic. It can be as little as there's strong muscular spasming going on in different parts of their body. That alone could be enough to trigger it. But why is it only in one direction and not the other? An unknown or a missing variable.
Wow.
And this is the whole problem. We don't know. We just don't know. But I'll tell you, go ahead.
I was going to say, we're not going to know until we die.
Well, I convinced that with the technology that exists, medical technology that exists, we can get answers very quickly with functional MRIs, with PET scans, with SPECT scans, and different more advanced EEGs and MEGs. We could get some answers pretty quickly, but the doctors working with it would never work again. Their careers would be over.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. If you become affiliated with this, you're a professional, medical or psychology. Your career ends right there and then. It's over. They'll throw you out. They'll be really nice to your face, and suddenly they don't want to talk to you anymore, or they can't. They're not available, or this or that. It's interesting. When INLA came to me in the mid-'70s, when the lab was up and running, I told her they wanted her talking heads, and I said, let's show holograms. Why? Because the closest manifestation to an apparition or ghost that's seen by human eyes in this world is a hologram. Okay, good theory, but what's producing the image when people see an apparition? Good question. Let's move around in time a little bit here. So after my surgeries, and before and during having all these eye surgeries, I'm staying with a friend in the middle of nowhere here, and I'm staying at his house, and nothing ever going on there until I moved in, which was April of 2017. And beautiful place, quiet, restful, nice and cool, can't complain. Less people than in Los Angeles, less crime. You don't have any crowds when you go anywhere. Anyway, long story short, on the couch watching TV, my friend is, I don't know where he was, somewhere else. And I hear a woman's voice go, Barry, and I blew up off the couch because my friend isn't there. And where's the voice coming from? Another time, I'm sleeping one night in my bedroom, and I hear a female voice yell the name Mikey real loud. It echoes in the hallway. Who's Mikey? I don't know anyone named Mikey. Another time, I'm going to sleep, put my head down. I feel someone blowing warm air in my left ear and my cheek. It's like a human presence. A female voice go, you remember me, Barry, don't you? Huh? Jump up. No one's there, but I see red and green light zipping around the room. Okay. We moved in November of 2017 to a different place, and thinking while we were moving, things happened. People talking, they weren't there. Thought movers were there. No, they were outside the house. I go to the other end of the house to see what it was. The voices were coming, disembodied voices, from the opposite side of the house. Okay. Then we moved here, which is actually quieter. I have a bigger bedroom, which is pleasant. Thinking, well, nothing's going to happen here. No, wrong. I'm sitting at the computer, and I see a shadow coming down the hallway. I'm going, whoa. And then it comes by me, but it's like a translucent image with no definition. But it seems humanoid. Okay. And then something been recurring since we've been here, banging on the door, the wall, boom, boom. And it blew me out of bed like a week or two ago, real loud. And I thought my friend had an emergency. No, he was sound asleep in his own bedroom. I don't know. And then this was the best one. So I wake up one morning, and instead of being in the bed alone, I wake up, and under my right cheek of my head, there's a person there. I look up, what? And there's enough light coming through from lights outside that I could see it's a woman, highbrow ridge, dark, real long, straight, dark hair, more melanin in her skin than I have in mine. And what? And I get up and, what are you doing? What are you, huh? And I go to put the light in and hear the voice going, don't turn the light on, don't turn the light on. What are you talking about? So I turn the light, I hit the lamp on the table next to my bed, and there's nothing there, but the bed was warm, and the pillow was depressed, where there shouldn't have been any heat or depression. What was that? I don't know.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I would have done the same thing. Whether the mysterious person is telling me not to turn the light on. Oh, yeah, that's not going to happen, lady. I'm turning the light on here.
I don't care what. The whole point of it is, I know I went to bed alone in my own bedroom. So I wake up, my right cheek is on her left breast. I'm like, what? No sexual, just this is the way it was. And who are you? What are you? You know, last week, coming out of the hallway, go to the bathroom one night, and you come out of my bedroom door, turn left, and I see these lights, look like almost like fireflies, but more erratic and much brighter. And it was jumping from a higher point, going down to a lower point near the front door. And I looked, and it came closer, then it snapped back, then it started high, went low, and I moved forward. I said, look, if there's something here, let me know what you want. Can I help? Nothing. And then went back to sleep, and then bang, bang, bang in the door hours later. So, you know, I'm 70 years old. This stuff isn't supposed to be happening to me at this age. Do you think that this stuff would occur when I was younger? Nope. That was all mental phenomena, not physical.
Yeah.
You know, it's just little things, they add up, and in the end, what does it mean? I have no idea.
Yeah, and that's that is the whole thing. You get pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, 1,000 pieces of a completely white jigsaw puzzle over time. And what am I going to build out of this? It's insane.
When I was living in L.A. before I left, I almost died, I was there with a friend watching a movie, and so we're watching, I forgot what it was. I just got a new TV, so watching, and all of a sudden, we see this blue ball come rolling across the floor. My friend goes, what's that? And I said, huh? What is it? From nowhere. Okay. We're sitting... Some other months later, we were watching TV, or I don't know what it was. We heard a big clang, a metal loud clang, and I jump up, and so we start open a cabinet in the kitchen, and there's a weird object in there I had never seen before. It was a tripod-like base with a metal ring. I guess you cook under it for camping. You put your pot or whatever on top.
Yep.
I've never owned one of those, ever. Why was it in my cupboard of my kitchen? I don't know.
Well, that's interesting, too.
And then I was out of town for a while, and I had some expensive stuff in my place, and I didn't want it to be left alone. So my friend was staying there, and his girlfriend, the girl, came over, and she put some earbuds down when she was in her bedroom, and she turned around, they were gone. Okay? She put her phone down. The phone then disappeared. Okay, I come home and told about this. I'm walking out of that bedroom sometime later, and the earbuds fly and hit me in the back. Little... And then, this is a good one. I come down and get in my car, and the seatbelt, it's attached to the inertia wheel to the side door, to the area right behind your driver's door. You pull it down to your... Okay. Well, it's tied up in a knot. The only way for that to have occurred would have been to dismount it, tie it in the knot, and then reconnect it to either the top or the inertia reel on the bottom. So how did it happen? I didn't do it. I had to take it to a dealer. Why did you dismount the seatbelt? I go, I didn't. Then how did I said, don't ask.
See, that's one of those... I would love to, if that was captured on a camera on the other side doing that, that would have been fascinating too. Just, it's a manipulation of something physical like that.
Yeah, the strangest thing that ever happened to me, I should write about it in my next...
This will be good because you've had a whole lifetime of strange things. Yeah. So what is the strangest thing that's ever happened?
You see, I know a lot about physics and how the world works because I studied this stuff. And so won a case in 19. Oh God, I have to look at myself. I think it was late. No, it was in the 90s. It was in Hyde Park or something. Yeah, I think so. Nice Hispanic family, very nice people. We're there, and I'm in the living room, and other people with us are in the dining room, and the dining room starts to violently shake, but the other parts of the house do not.
Oh, wow.
Which can't happen.
No.
And I could see this huge marble dinner table bouncing around, and yet I'm standing 12 feet away in another room, and am I not moving? But I don't even feel it. I'm going, what the hell is going on? That can't happen.
Crazy.
It can't. So, when you start compiling all this, it gets really strange. And then on my website, there's an article which, of all the strange of strange, I think synchronicity is one of the most bizarre, because sometimes it could reach heights that are just absurd beyond reason. So, let's start. In 1963, a man came in our lab, made the name of Richard Matheson, a well-known writer for TV and movies. I knew who he was, and with him was his son, Richard Christian Matheson. So, I worked on them with a couple of projects. Nothing ever got to TV. But Richard and I became friends, the son, Richard Christian, and we discovered we have the same birthday, month, day, and time, but he's 4 years younger than me. Okay.
Wow.
So, over the years, weird synchronicities popped up. I lost touch with him. He was busy running around making movies, writing, producing. So we reconnected like in 2006, 5, I think, yeah. So we're having lunch. And I used to have a Rolex watch. Piece of crap. Watches never run good on me, and Rolexes never did. I got rid of it, so I wasn't wearing a watch. What I wanted to buy was a Tag Heuer Curium F1 watch. But it was a lot of money. I didn't feel like spending it. So guess what watch Richard is wearing? That exact watch I want.
Oh.
But his parents gave it to him. They brought it home when they were traveling in Europe. Okay. Then he drove a Lexus SC300, I think. I drove a Toyota Super Turbo. Our license plate differed by only one number. Everything else was the same. Okay. And then, years ago, I had some moles taken off my body. One above my belly button, one on each side of my diaphragm, and one on my back, forming a perfect equilateral line around my midsection. Unbeknownst to me, the same day, Richard goes to his dermatologist and has the same moles removed from the same part of his body.
What?
Yeah, I know. But wait, it gets better. He had met my parents a long time ago. We were very young. He didn't remember their names. So my mom passed away in 2009. He said, what was your mom's name? And I said, Ruth. And he got real quiet. I said, are you there? Are you there? What do you mean? Was her name really Ruth? I go, why would I lie about it? But, yeah. You're kidding. No. What was her last name? I said, Brown. He goes, you're joking. I go, nope. His mother's name was Ruth. Her last name started with a B as well, her maiden name. Huh?
Wow.
Okay. So this is getting a little weird. My mother had a middle name, which was Anne. And Richard's mother's middle name was Anne. When his father died in 2013, I was out having dinner with friends. The phone call came in from another friend who heard about it. Going, oh, no, it's terrible. The father was a writing genius, Twilight Zone, you name it, he did everything. And I said, why is this day so significant? Oh, his father died on my father's birthday.
That is...
Okay. Years earlier, I was at the beach surfing. I got pulled under by a riptide, and I was drowning. Blocked out, I could feel water filling my lungs. And suddenly, I'm standing in water, only 2.5 feet deep. I'm going, what happened? Where am I? Where am I? No one near me. How did I get here? I'm all wet. What? Well, 4 years later, almost to the day, Richard is surfing, at the same beach, and he is sucked under by a riptide and almost drowned, and he finds himself standing in water for no apparent reason.
Huh.
Okay, now, in 1963, it was the second to last year of the original Twilight Zone. One of the shows I became obsessed with, called Death Ship, Ross Martin, Jack Klugman were the stars of it. And I really loved the show in many ways. Anyway, I thought, I've got to meet this writer, Richard. I've got to meet this writer. 10 years later to the day, Richard and his son walk in the lab. They came to me. And then, I don't know what age you are, but if you're over 45, there was a character actor, used to play heavies and bad guy. Name was Edward Andrews. You'd know his face, you'd know his voice, very unique. Ever since I saw him since I was a kid, I know the man. I know him. I know his voice, I know his face, I know his body language. Why do I know this man? Back in the early 80s, I get a phone call from Mrs. Edward Andrews. Pacific Palisades, their house is haunted. So I go out there, and I walk in, and I meet the wife first, and I meet Edward. Edward's really tall, like about 6'5", big guy. And he says to me, "You look really familiar. Do we know each other?" I said, "Not in any way you'd understand." He goes, "What?" I go, "No, forget it." So their daughter came out. Now, I don't remember what her real name was, but I remember what her nickname was. Her nickname was Taffy, Taffy. Why'd you nickname her Taffy? He goes, "I don't know." That was it. It's what it means, I have no idea. But there's another one. Listen to this. There used to be a gorgeous brunette actress named Susan Strasberg.
Yeah.
And I never met her, but I knew who she was. So back in the 70s, she was on some talk show. Forgot which one, but she was divorced and already had a kid, and they were asking her about who she's dating. And she says she's dating a guy named Barry from UCLA's Parapsychology Laboratory. I'm dating her? I am. I never met her.
She never
What's
phones.
going on here? Friends are calling me. I've never met her. I'd love to meet her. No. Okay. Years pass. I don't know why. I never contacted her because I don't call entertainment. I don't call industry people that are strangers because I want to talk to them. So years go by, and about 8 years ago, I became obsessed wanting to know why Susan Strasberg claimed she knew me and was dating me. Okay, so remember I told her Dr. Moss began her life as a writer and an actress.
Yeah.
Okay, well, her best friend was the actress Shelley Winters. Now, when I first met Thelma at her home in spring of '69, she threw me her keys and I psychometrized them. And I said, see a fat, blue-eyed blonde woman named Shelley who's screaming all the time. That was inaccurate if
a little rude, but totally accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, so that was her best friend. So the reason that Susan Strasberg knew of Dr. Moss or had met her because her best friend also was Shelley Winters. In fact, Shelley Winters is the one that introduced Susan to her future husband, which didn't work. I mean, the marriage failed quickly. But anyway, so I'm going, okay, but why does Susan think if you read Thelma's books, I was involved in her books. Probability, Impossible, and The Body Electric. Okay, big deal. I'm in the books. But that doesn't... Then about 8 years ago, I met a Xerox place in West Hollywood that they did really cheap for... I had to write up some business plans, I had to print them out. They're very expensive. So I'm waiting there, and this tall guy to my left, and he says, "Hey, Barry." "Hello. Remember me?" I went, "No." His name was Larry. I go, "Okay." And his last name, I can't say it without his permission. I said, "Oh, don't you remember me?" I go, "No." "You don't remember me?" I go, "No, I don't know you. You should date my sister." I go, "Who?" And he throws out a name, and I said, "I've never met her." "Yes, you did, a long time ago. I used to date her." I said, his sister is an actress. And I knew who she was, and I thought she was very attractive. I said, "I've never met you or your sister." He said, "You had a silver Corvette, was really loud, had black side pipes." "Yes, but I did not date your sister. What am I supposed to do? So I said, I don't know why you think, okay. Weeks later, I'm at Art's Deli in Sherman Oaks having lunch with a friend. And he's saying, hey, there's a girl back there keeps staring at you. It's this guy's sister, who's a couple years older than me. And you know her? I said, no. Then why is she staring at you? I don't know. I'm not going to go up to her, hey, why do you know me? Nothing. Weeks later, I'm back at the Xerox place at West Hollywood, and there is this guy, Larry, again. He said, you know, my sister was really pissed you didn't come over and say hello to her. I said, I don't know your sister at all. What are you talking about? I don't know her. I said, okay, how did I meet her? He said, through Susan. Who? Susan Strasberg. I go, that's it. I'm done. So that's been my part of my life. It's the weirdness of it all.
Man,
You know?
we're talking to Barry Taff. He is the doctor, the good doctor, Barry Taff, parapsychologist, and one of the, well, I find one of the leading kind of people into this study as a former, I guess you're a research associate at UCLA's Parapsychology Lab from 1969 through 1978, and he's a writer and an experiencer of all things a little bit weird. And if you're interested in who Susan Strasberg was, her dad was Lee Strasberg, the acting coach and the one of the actor studios. And unfortunately, Susan passed at the age of 50, or I think it was it 50, of breast cancer. But if people who are a little bit older, who remember television shows back in the day, in the 50s and as you were, the 60s and 70s, she was in a lot of them, from Mannix, Rockford Files, Streets of San Francisco, Big Valley, and dated people like, who did she date? Warren Beatty, Cary Grant, Richard Burton, and married a guy she acted with, Christopher Jones, who was in a TV series, The Legend of Jesse James. But very, very, very interesting young lady. It was absolutely amazing. And how she was dating you, and how Shelley Winters got involved, and oh my gosh, good Lord, man. Absolutely amazing. And remember, if you want to go check out some of the stuff Barry's got going, go to his website. It is Barry Taff. That's TAFF.net. Barry Taff, all one word, .net. And in the top left corner, you'll see a cover of his book, Aliens Above, Ghosts Below, and just click on that, and it'll take you to a lot of the little snippets out of that book. And just keep a heads up, because Barry's writing another one, and he's not allowed to tell me the title, but we'll definitely let you know when it comes out. Barry, I was wondering to jump in here, and I just want you to, if you can, define, in your experience and your research, what is a poltergeist?
Well, poltergeist is a German word which means noisy spirit, noisy ghost. And it was believed that that's indeed what it was. However, the data collected suggests that it's something far more complicated and far more interesting. That it may very likely be the extension of human psychokinesis within the environment to produce the effects like as luminous anomalies and object movements and things being ported from one room to another, or one place to another. And like I said, if you met every poltergeist agent I've met, people I've investigated over the last 50 years, the pattern is consistent. Now, this is what's important. In science, you do work in a lab, and you conduct experiments, and you have a hypothesis, you look to either prove or disapprove a hypothesis. But if you can't go out and you can't bring this stuff into a lab, you're left with doing field work. And the only way you're going to get answers is collecting data over a long period of time, not only asking a lot of questions, but also knowing what questions to ask and listening to not only what they say, but how they say it. And then, nowadays, you can measure the physical environment, electromagnetic, geomagnetic, electrostatic. You can measure people's response to the environment. They live as instruments doing that. There's things that can measure gravity to one degree or another. And all this is important because it's how we interact with these environments that is what produces the phenomena we call poltergeist activity. Last week they were playing the original Haunting on TV from 1963, the best haunted house movie ever made, ever. And it drives home the point that Julie Harris was the poltergeist agent. And the book was, of course, better than another great haunted house movie was The Legend of Hell House, which was written by Richard Matheson. Came out 10 years later. But, like I said, the stuff, we know enough now where the poltergeist phenomena, these recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis is believed, that we could artificially trigger such events and sit back and watch them happen. However, such would have a high probability of really damaging the poltergeist agent. You might electrocute them, put them into severe shock, kill them. So at what point you stop and say why? Or, as I said earlier, you could get the right medical people to use functional MRIs and PET scans and SPECT scans and all of that. And that would very likely get us answers, because I suspect that there's some part of our brain and our nervous system that's involved with all of this. And if we saw that only in these unique individuals there were certain types of electrochemical, neurochemical variations, we could then form a positive linkage to the phenomena and trigger it. But you're not going to do it putting people at risk. It's unethical and immoral.
Yeah. This is amazing. It opens up a whole, for me anyway, and my background, my limited background in paranormal investigations and things that I've seen and heard and recorded. It opens, and I'm like you. Every time we experience something like this, you think you have an answer to a question, but you've got 300 other questions that fall from it. And I think that is how we. I know. I'm really sure that's how you went from that kid being able to see things and to getting to where you are today and writing another book about your experiences. Is that every time you wake up every day, you have more questions, and right. It's not going to stop until we've, dropped out of this meat sack that we carry and move on. And
right.
Hopefully, we're going to find an answer at that side, or else I'll be coming back haunting somebody. I know I will.
I mean, we have time for one more quick story.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
This is let's see, 1963. The girl ended up running away from me because of the tumor diagnosis. Anyway.
Yes.
We first met. There was a lot of sexual tension. She was dating a married man who never divorced his wife. A lot of tension between us sexually, but we never had touch each other yet. So I go to sleep when I'm on my left side. I had not gone to sleep yet. The covers go up behind me. A body rolls into me. It's a female body. It's not mine. I see an arm come over me, and I go, what? And I look back. There's nothing there. And about an hour later, the phone rings. It's the girl, Carol. And she goes, what happened? I said, well, I was getting in bed behind you to cuddle, and you moved. It scared me, and suddenly I found myself back in my own bed.
Wow.
Okay. And then years earlier, I was dating this other girl, William Shatner's niece. No big deal, but she looked like Julia Harris with more pigmentation, very exotic looking.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just getting to know each other. So I'm sleeping, and suddenly I hear someone talking. I get what? I see this woman standing next to me. She puts her hand on my forehead, and she goes, "It's only me, Barry. It's only me." What do you do? Boom! Get up, gone. Hours later, the phone rings. She goes, "You scared the hell out of me last night, but I found myself in your bedroom, and I thought you were sick. I put my hand over your forehead. You moved, and I was back here." By location, OBE. I don't know.
I don't know either. You're like a magnet.
No, it's like things are relative to our things. Everything's need relevance. We access information that's important to us. Things happen, physical, because things are related in a subconscious way to us or unconscious that are significant to either we're attracted to or repulsed from. And therefore, we tend to bring things to us that we want or need. And one last thing, this girl Carol, way back 46 years, oh God, she gave me for my birthday was a gold Parker T-Bolt jotter with my initials and birth date inscribed in it. Really nice. So I left the lab one night and went, oh no, I can't go back to security, get in the middle of the night. So I said, well, I just hit myself. I kissed the pen goodbye. And I'm just falling asleep, and I feel something hit the bed. It's the pen. But I had already called John, who worked at the lab. I said, did you see my pen? Yeah, it was right by the phone on the desk out there. Why did you leave it there? Well, I don't know. Well, it was back in my bedroom, on my bed. And, I don't know. So it's a pattern. Things that are important to us, that are relevant, happen. And this is what it's all about. Things that we want and crave, we're drawn to. Things that we're repulsed by, scare us, may also show up because they upset us. And that's what we perceive, things that shock us from our mundane daily existence.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And again,
life is never boring.
Life isn't boring. And it appears death might be not boring either. Depending on the circumstances behind.
There's no... I said I got a funny feeling in the end that we're not going to like what we learn. The same way that on my website, in my first book, I talk about why the worst thing our government could do would be to acknowledge the reality of UFOs and that maybe there'd be contact and exchanges at some level, and we have some technology. It would be great for people like myself and ufologists who are seriously into this and want to know things, but it would be the most destructive information ever provided to the human race, in my opinion.
Why is that?
It would be disruptive. Socioeconomic infrastructure could crumble. We already have certain parts of the world that are glad to go to war, yelling in jihad, yelling in the name of their God, because we think differently than they do. If you want it, what if it turns out that there is intelligence, but what if it turns out that God had nothing to do with it? We were designed by someone, and it wasn't God. What then? And then whoever these beings are, each power would want, they want an affiliation with them to get an advantage. In human history, when an inferior culture meets up with a superior one, the inferior one is either destroyed or assimilated. And it's believed that the same thing would probably happen now. The government, they may not be too bright, but in some respects, they know what they're doing. And trust me, I've been teaching ufology for decades, and I've seen the reaction people have had, and I think in most respects, they're doing the right thing. To satiate the curiosity of a few, yes.
Yeah.
But to risk the collapse of the civilized world, no.
Yeah, I agree with you on why governments and those who know don't want this to come out. There a few years back, there were people, arming themselves and protesting that Syrian refugees were coming into the United States. My God, they're Syrian refugees. Now, you want to build a bunker and hide on the Syrians? Well, what about aliens? Now add that to the list, and how paranoid is that few going to get? But again, I've never looked at it under the lens that you have, where it's going to be a real kick in the groin for the belief systems, not only for North America, but for every little village around the planet. Yeah,
it would be a very, very destructive thing. It would not serve or benefit the majority of the human race. We're not ready for that sort of contact. It would be really bad, and everyone would try to take advantage of it. Blah blah blah, and not everyone, but the powers that be, and it wouldn't help us. So why should we stimulate that? I mean, they're not here to conquer us. They're not here to invade us and destroy us. But what if we discovered that we're being manipulated in ways we can't comprehend yet, for reasons we may not like? And what if we find out that a faction of the government that might have actually killed a very famous leader, to safeguard the information?
Yeah.
And what if we learned that the biggest political assassination of the 20th century might have had a strange link to ufology?
Yep. Yeah,
that's not good. And if I have a really bad feeling about that it might, and if let's say they're willing to kill the commander-in-chief to safeguard the most closely guarded knowledge on Earth, that would only create more problems if they've done that. What else have they done in the sense of protecting this closely guarded secret?
Yeah, I talked to Jim Mars a couple of years ago about that exact thing.
It's and then of course, who would be special? Who would you want? And then you have the crazy people. I won't even use their names. They're really well educated. Oh, there's aliens over the field. Yeah, telepathically get them to come in and visit us. And this. Oh God, I go, yeah, right. And one last story, which ties this all together. Okay, I've been interested in UFOs since I was old enough to read about them. I read pretty much everything that's been published. And I met a lot of the ufologists as well as parapsychologists. Now, back in 1977, I met a girl in a case who was probably the best-looking girl I've ever met in my life. Just my concept of physical perfection. It was great. Got involved, blah, blah. Long story short, we're together for a few weeks. I keep having the fear, a sense of terror that the relationship would end on July 22nd, but I didn't know why. I just knew it would end, and I go, I'm not going to tell her. She would misinterpret that as being, I wanted to end, therefore I'm telling her about it, which was not true. Long story short, we're in the same bed in the Hollywood Hills near the Hollywood Bowl, and I wake up. Now, the reason I met her was because there was a poltergeist activity around her. I met her in February of the same year. So I get there. She won't come out from under the covers. She's sobbing. Why didn't I help her? I go, with what? When they took me, I go, who? I'm talking about, took you where? Well, the room lit up under the covers. She's shaking. She's sobbing. The room lit up, and she found herself in another room. It was circular. It was metallic. It was cold. She was on some kind of pedestal. There were these little weird guys around her who had no noses, no ears, big black eyes, the grays. They were cutting and probing, and it was hurting her, and they kept telling her they weren't going to hurt her too bad. Well, what? I said to her, is she still under the covers? I said, what do you know about UFO abduction? She goes, what? She had no interest in the subject of UFOs at all. What do you know? What? Nothing. You sure? I don't know. About UFO abduction? She goes, what? UFO? Huh? Okay. She finally gets up from bed, out of the covers. She's bleeding from her ear. She's bleeding from her eye, bleeding from her nose, bleeding from her rectum, and from her uterus, but she wasn't menstruating. On her back were little melon ball marks, like someone had pulled skin out of her. Her hair had been cut. And she said she had been tightly restrained around her ankles, her abdomen, and her wrists. And she had black and blue wounds there. Stigmata, maybe, of an unusual type. Whatever this was, I can't. Now, whatever happened, they took her and they didn't take me. The neighbors, knowing nothing about it, at one point they said to me, "Do you see that word light hovering around here?" I go, when? Well, a couple days ago, it was like a house, like a big orangish thing. And that's when the power went out. Huh. Now, I don't know what happened to her, but she's now a mental vegetable. So had that not occurred, we probably would have been married in less than a year, and my life would have changed dramatically. So why? I don't know.
That is fascinating.
You know, never a dull moment. And the part of the story is on my website. It's called A Life-Changing Paranormal Event.
That would have been one, yeah. I'm going to bring you back, Barry, and we're going to talk about UFOs.
Okay.
And as it gets closer to time to research, you release your book too, I'm going to be picking at your brain and on a few things, because I know this is going to stir up a lot of people wanting to, with a lot more questions. And if you have questions, you can actually get a hold of me at on my website, theoraclesofjamestyson.com, or if you go to Barry's website. Yeah, I think you could probably get a hold of Barry there too. You have anything that you'd like to talk to him about.
Right.
You're actually on Facebook too, aren't you?
Correct.
Yeah, so you can go Barry Taff on Facebook, Dr. Barry Taff, and look stuff up. Barry, you're a fascinating human being, and yeah, I'm going to be down in LA at Alien Con at the end of June. So I'm probably going to I'll come and take you out for lunch.
Okay, except I'm not in LA anymore.
Oh, where are you now?
I'm 128 miles away.
Up north or south?
South, near
I gotta
Palm
go.
Springs.
I have to go visit somebody in Carlsbad and then out to San Diego. So I may fly out. Not fly. I'll drive out there.
It's only 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it's just like I'll come. Yeah. You know, if you're in Palm Springs, that's good because I don't like cold weather. I almost went down to Joshua Tree at Contact in the Desert, but I didn't get my booth, so I'll come down next year for that. But yeah, I'd love to hear more and actually meet Mr. Dr. Barry Taff. And again, please go to his website, barrytaff.net. Click on the book cover in the top left corner and just have a read of what he was writing about in Aliens Above, Ghosts Below a few years ago. And I can't wait until your new book comes out. It'll be absolutely...
That's it. Let's roll. And hey! Let's be careful out there.
Far over the snow, what are those voices? They sing and they go, what are those voices? Look up for the mountains. Because somebody hide, somebody better hide on through the hill, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. We are after you, dead or alive. We are out to get you, dead or alive. And forget yourself. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done. Throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the man that are now.